it together one of these times when we get back in person.
Harmonize. We've got to work on our harmony.
All right. Agenda adjustments.
I do
We
have
do
one. What's that?
I think we have one.
Yeah, we do. I would like to add 7.5, motion to approve third year probationary teachers to continuing contract. That got left off the agenda.
No, we got a new agenda.
7.2 is to approve second and third year probationary to continuing contract.
We need to
Yep.
change that. So we need two agenda adjustments. I'm sorry. So we need to adjust 7.2, motion to approve second year probationary teachers to third year probationary teachers. And then we need to add 7.5, motion to approve third year probationary teachers to continuing contract teachers.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Thought maybe the law statute had changed about the period of probation.
Well, I got to thank Marco for picking up on this today. Marco and I went back and forth on the law, ended up having to look up the law. So, because it changed with the probation and then they pushed it off and then there was PPEG and it was a lot. So, yeah. So thank you, Marco.
Okay, so agenda adjustments require approval of the board.
Yep.
So and it's not necessarily has to be voted on, I don't believe. I think it just has to be approved by the board.
I think
Is there
because
any
we're
board
in
member
remote,
that's a disagreement with approving the agenda adjustments?
I think because we're in remote, Bob, it probably makes good sense to have a roll call vote for this.
Okay.
Just for documentation purposes. So,
All right, so you want a motion then to approve the agenda adjustments as
yes,
presented?
please. Yep.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Bob,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Robbie,
Yes.
Joan,
Yes.
Vicky,
Yes.
Stephanie,
Yes.
Andrea.
Hi.
I'll take that as a yes. Joe is not here this evening. And Dory.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. So that means we're amending 7.2 and adding 7.5. So,
Correct.
yep. Okay, thank you all.
Okay. This time, if I entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the April 14th, 2021 Board of Directors meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Joan, seconded by Robbie. Any discussion, corrections, modifications? I hear none, so I'll call for the vote.
Bob,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Robbie,
Yes.
Joan,
Yes.
Vicky,
Yes.
Stephanie,
Yes.
Andrea,
Yes.
Joe is absent. Sorry about that. And Dory.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to 3 comments from the floor of the public. We don't have as many people as we've been having at these meetings, but I don't remember all the names of everybody who attends. So I'll just go over briefly a couple things from our policy about public comment period before we open it up. So it says, although the Board of Directors are not a public forum, the Board of Directors will provide appropriate opportunities for citizens to express opinions and concerns relating to matters under consideration by the Board of Directors. The intent is to allow for the public to be heard and provide adequate time for the Board of Directors to obtain information and opinion on subjects before it, while ensuring that time allowed for public discussion does not interfere with fulfillment of the scheduled agenda. During the time allotted for public participation, members of the public may speak on any subject directly related to the operations of the schools, except for personal matters or complaints concerning specific employees or students, which shall be addressed through established policies and procedures. Speakers are not permitted to share secondhand information, make defamatory comments, or use abusive or vulgar language. No complaints or allegations will be allowed at Board of Directors meetings concerning any person employed by the school system or against particular students. Personal matters or complaints concerning students or staff will not be considered in a public meeting, but will be referred through established policies and procedures. The chairman of the board has the authority to stop any presentation that violates these guidelines or the privacy rights of others. Those are just some selected highlights. Some of the others is just kind of more common sense. It's just to go and keep good order and discipline during our public comments and keep us on track. So at this time, if there's any members of the public or staff members who would like to go and speak, you can send a text. It's not a text, it's a chat to the superintendent who receives all the chats, or you can raise your hand using that function and the superintendent will call on you in my behalf. I know it's supposed to be the chairman that does that. However, with the Zoom possibilities that we have, the superintendent is the host and has those functions.
All right, so the chat is open directly to me at this point. I have nothing so far.
Okay.
No hands raised.
All right. I don't see any other items on the schedule that may other outside of the presentation that we're going to receive that might want to have some input from the residents of the towns. But should we have an item like that, it's the board's practice to go allow public to speak at that time on that particular item before we take our vote, but after the board has done most of its deliberation. So if there is none yet, then we will move on.
All right, and I will close the chat.
Okay. Petitions and communications.
I have none this evening.
All right, report, superintendent's report.
Yep. So just briefly, just so you're aware, you saw on the agenda tonight, we'll be hearing a presentation from CHA Architects. I'm excited for you to hear this presentation. We heard them as a Finance and Facilities Committee, and now we come to the board with them. Other than that, on May 5th, the CPT team will be meeting. We'll talk a little bit about that under item 6.2, yes, I believe. And then also on May 5th, Kathy and I will be hosting a community chat through Zoom. Budget will be on the agenda, as well as talking about the potentials for next year and reorganization. Those will be the three hot topics. I encourage you all to come. I think it'll be an interesting time. Certainly, I will be presenting, showing my PowerPoint of the budget and answering any questions about that. The budget book will be going out, Scott. Scott's been working on that. We've been reviewing it, should be getting out next week. So that'll be good. One of the things that we must do this year, because of the executive order, I think it's 8A, maybe off the top of my head. We have to, because we're going directly to referendum, we do have to provide the opportunity for public feedback. So the budget book does have a tear off in it that can be sent back to us. I also have posted on the website a link to a Google form so that people can give feedback on the budget, ask questions, things like that. When we get questions on the Google form or on the tear offs, I will be posting those on the website as well. Other than that, I just have to say that our staff are working really hard. Our staff's working really hard, all of them. Bus drivers, custodians, secretaries, teachers, educational technicians, our technology folks, and certainly our administrators. And this has been the most trying year we have ever had as an organization. And I think every school district is feeling the brunt of that. So, I just want to say we have a fantastic team in RSU4. It starts with all of you. It trickles down to everyone else. And I just want to recognize how hard they're working. There's a lot of rhetoric out there right now with regards to, teachers not, working all the time and things like that. That is just not the case. And it's getting pretty tiring to see, because our folks are working harder, I think, than they ever had. Nobody's jobs are the same anymore. The jobs that we all do this year are not the jobs that we've done in the past. And I just want to recognize our staff because they are so good. They care about kids. They care about the education of kids. And it's just amazing to see. Other than that, we'll address a couple of things under the CPT team. We do have a couple of resignations. Michelle Simpson, Ed Tech 2 at Carey Ricker School, Diane Whittemore, French teacher at Oak Hill High School, and Yvonne Meservy, a special education teacher at Oak Hill High School. Other than that, that concludes my report.
Any questions of the superintendent? All right, 5.2, Director of Curriculum Assessment and Instruction. Kathy.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I first want to just share that over break, we had about 5 phone calls with the CDC, and we ended up with about 10 cases of positive COVID-19. And since the beginning of the week, we've had 2 more. Fortunately, most people, due to the timing, did not have close contacts, although we did have 1 case that did affect the high school. And a couple of the cases today did affect some of our students and staff. So we're going to continue to update that. We have a new plan for notification of community members that we will be bringing to CPT next week, to just streamline the process and not inundate families with information about COVID every single night. So we will bring that to the team next week. Summer school, the planning is continuing. Met with our literacy and math coaches to finalize the curriculum plans. We also finalized our list for each of the sessions. We are excited to be able to offer up to 2 sessions, so 4 weeks of summer school for students that would like to do summer school. So some parents only opted 1 week, but we are offering up to 2. So we are finalizing phone calls to verify daycares and addresses, and working on transportation through May. And bus routes will be posted June 4th, and our first session starts June 21st. So I just want to thank for those folks that have been helping with the heavy lifting on summer school. The other piece I wanted to update you is on MEA. As I shared, MEA is being offered remotely. We have at the middle school and high school had done practice tests before vacation, and today was our first round of the actual test. It went very well. Obviously, there's some, students that didn't show up that we have a contingency plan for. So we'll continue to work on that. And that's part of our plan as we head into May. Next week, or this week, we're actually practicing with the Carey Ricker students. And our remote teachers, or our cohort D teachers, are actually taking the lead since they've been doing remote teaching all year. They were a great advocate and had all of the technology and the know-how to engage students in remote testing. So they started to do that as well and are having great success with our 3-5 friends. And they will do the actual tests next week. So and they too have contingency plans for students that cannot do it remotely or are not attending. But we are slowly rolling this out. And then mid-May, we'll have to do science, and that will be in person. And so just wanted to update you that we're off and rolling. MEA is happening. And that is all I have for tonight.
All right, any questions? Okay, thank you. Financial report. We don't.
We met Bob at 5:45, and I'll be reporting out during the committee reports.
Okay. Administrators reports. We're gonna start. Marco, you look like you're already starting to talk.
Marco's ready to go, I think.
Okay, yes. Good evening, everybody. Thanks again for allowing me a couple of moments just to talk about some happenings at Oak Hill High School. Obviously, last week was vacation and staff and students took a well-deserved break, as Andy said, just have been working super hard given everything that's going on. But coming back this week, we're gearing up super quickly for the end of the year. We've had a number of committee meetings even prior to vacation, just to talk about end of year events and what they're going to look like. And obviously, as I've reported before, graduation. So we're in full planning mode for all of those different pieces, and things are coming together really nicely to offer some really nice events for our seniors, which we're really excited about. As Kathy said, today was the first day for MEA testing, and that went super smoothly. I just want to take a moment and thank the tech department for their support, and also our proctors, a couple of teachers, Mrs. Finn and Mr. Young, for proctoring an exam. We had half of our junior class show up for those remote distance tests, and as I said, they went really, really well, very smooth. And my hopes are is that within the next week or so, we'll be able to get the others on board and tested so that we have checked that box for this school year. And that is all I have at this point in time from high school.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wilson.
I was just taking notes. Marco always has a lot of good knowledge. So at the middle school and at the primary school, we are also gearing up for the end of the year. We're looking to try to get a barbecue in for one of the lunches for the middle school, and we're looking to put together some activities, fun activities outside for the kids at the primary school. MEAs were today for the middle school as well. We had a little over half of each one of our grade levels participate today, which is great. Really went pretty smoothly. A little confusion to begin with, but we seemed to hammer it out pretty well. We've been meeting with the staff, both at the primary school and the middle school, who are joining us next year. We had a great opportunity today to meet with all the first and second grade teachers together to talk about what's gone well this year, what we've overcome, and some steps for us to make improvements for next year. And Ms. Johnson had helped us come up with that topic. So really appreciate the all-around support for our staff. The middle school, we met with the fifth grade team today and to have them kind of get acclimated again to the middle school. And we met with humanities people. Humanities is we're combining social studies and writing together next year, creating a humanities class. So this was our second meeting today with the humanities teachers to discuss what that curriculum is going to look like and then how we're going to implement it. So a lot of positive steps forward with the change coming up, and a lot of positive steps towards the end of the year. A lot of energy going into this year. And I got to tell you, with the comments we had out of the primary school about how resilient our students are and how strong our community has been to come together to support us, to this point, has really been remarkable. And like Mr. Carlton said, we can't thank you guys enough for your support. And that's all I have tonight.
All right, Jamie.
Good evening. I think Ben and I should be with Marco in between us, so it doesn't sound quite as repetitive with our grade levels, but a few similar things here. We are doing Bikes for Books. I know that they did that at Sabatis already, but we're starting that next Monday, the 3rd. That will run through the end of May. And we'll announce our bike winners on June 2nd. One girl and one boy for all grades pre-K through 5 will win a bike provided by the Grand Masonic Lodge of Litchfield. We'll be having a field day in June at both of our schools, Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier. Staff were itching to have end of year events, and we met as the CPT committee and came up with the rules for that to stay COVID compliant. So I challenged them, if you want to do these things, here are the requirements. So we came up with a couple of ideas. Field days will happen. We'll have to stay by grade level, and instead of having the whole school at the same time, but we'll keep that COVID compliant and still enjoy our time together outside. Michelle Wilkins and Ali Casares have been working very hard to prepare an end of year parent event, also COVID compliant. So that will be interesting, way different than what our normal plans are for these events. Literacy committee members have been helping with that, and we'll have more information coming soon. So I'll report back later on after parents have heard about that. Kathy Martin has shared information about the Freckle Challenge that we did in March. I have a little bit of data on that. Students at Carey Ricker spent 106,000 minutes combined between all students on math and reading practice in March when we had that challenge, compared to 48,500 minutes in February. So that's a huge gain. So that challenge definitely helped. Libby Tozier spent 29,400 minutes total on math and reading, compared to 16,100 in February. So that's a lot of math and reading practice, way more than we're used to seeing. Mrs. Merrifield's class won that challenge at Libby Tozier, Miss Peffer's class won at Carey Ricker, and Mr. Ireland's class was the runner-up. We have a lot of very impressive art displays at Carey Ricker right now. The hallways look amazing. Mrs. Williams has worked a lot with her students to provide that as we walk through the building. We have color wheel eyes, self-portraits, and tall 3D cakes that are pretty impressive. I'll have to get some pictures to share. Mr. Johnston has been bringing his students outside. They sit right outside of my office, which is kind of cool if I open the windows. They've been playing the drums. So that's been really interesting to be able to see. And then Mr. Wilson kind of already spoke to this, but he and I have been working collaboratively, as well as Mrs. Johnson and Mr. Jack, to allow our staff to work together for planning for the next school year, as we're trying to also wrap up this one. Staff have been very dedicated and committed to all of that work. There's a lot to accomplish. We've been able to bring them to their new buildings, as well as doing the work they need to at their current settings. So it's been nice to be able to work through that together and start to feel like we're ready to go next year. And then you heard enough about MEAs, so I will spare you that, but we're going. So we'll see how it goes next week when we start the real test. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any questions for any of the administrators or the principals, rather? Okay, then we'll move on to Nancy's special ed report.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everybody. So at this point, we in special ed are getting ready in about a week and a half to start our conversations with CDS and parents, certainly of students who have pre-K kids with IEPs. At those meetings, we're going to be talking about how we can make those transitions successful in kindergarten and help parents to really start to feel comfortable with the idea of their child coming to kindergarten. It can be a really stressful time for parents. So at those meetings, parents get to meet our RSU4 staff who will be working with their students, and the building administrator attends also. We try to provide a picture of what their child's day can look like, and we work together with families and CDS and building staff to really create a schedule that's going to work for that student. This year we have 11 students at this point transitioning into our district who will all have those meetings. And like last year, those meetings will all be held remotely. Some of those pre-K students are going to get an in-person experience through our summer school Camp Rise offering this year. So that's a good thing, and that will help, I think, start parents to get a comfortable picture of what school can look like. We're also making plans for extended school year services. And for those who don't know what that is, these are summer services determined by a student's IEP team for kids who tend to lose skills during interruptions in learning and then struggle to regain those skills on the same kind of timeline that other students would. Typically, those interruptions would be vacations during the school year and summer vacation. And we try to base our decisions around that and not necessarily the COVID interruption. And this year, to some degree, our services are going to be aligning with that RSU4 elementary summer school experience and called Camp Rise. And we're going to be looking for entry points where our kids can join those sessions. And we're pretty excited about that. And obviously, any opportunities for kids to be with other kids at this point to have fun learning experience is a good thing. So I continue to work with Kathy on that. And that's all I've got.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Moving on, Norma Jean, technology report.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to bring up MEAs just one more time, just because you haven't heard enough yet, but it was really cool today to be tech support for the middle school. I was supporting the 8th grade proctors, and it was a great opportunity because, you know, we're kind of nerdy to have 4 devices going at once. So it was really exciting to see how well the proctors were and how well the students did in that environment. So it just shows, you know, that They've been doing really well during the school year. I mean, it was amazing to watch, and a lot of the students I haven't seen all year, so it was great to see how much they've changed, even if you're watching them over a Meet or a Zoom. And the techs are also preparing for end of year processing. So inventory, all the classroom moves that are happening, and making sure that teachers have what they need when they move into their new classroom, and also end of year device collection, which will be exciting. So that's it for me. Any questions?
All right, adult ed, athletic from Jim Palmer.
Good evening. I'll start with adult ed. So we're winding down our school year. It looks like at this point between Lisbon and Oak Hill, we're going to have 8 to 10 graduates, which is a little lower than normal, not too much, but we actually have 7 at Oak Hill and 2 possible for Lisbon. So the numbers at Oak Hill are a little better. We plan to do our graduation again at the end of May, similar to what we did this fall from last year's, is an outdoor graduation on the football lacrosse field, so that we can social distance and make sure everybody gets recognized. So we're already hoping next year looks a little bit better, and we can start to put some more courses back into the program and get some different people back into our program. So hoping that will happen next year. But the other part of my report is athletics, and a lot of new stuff going on with athletics. We're obviously playing games now, and we're playing them with the intent that there's going to be a bout at the end, and keeping the heel point standings like we normally do. The MPA just announced today that the outdoor events do not need to wear a mask anymore while they're participating for practices or competition. So it's still pretty, I haven't really discussed a lot as to what that's going to look like. They put it in there that if you're in a dugout or a kind space, small group, then you'll need to wear a mask at that thing. So, but we are playing. We had the tennis test match tonight, and so far, I speak to the home events. Our fans have been pretty good about making sure that they follow the guidelines. I'm hoping that they're the same way on the road at other people's facilities, but I haven't heard anything. So I think that's good if I don't hear anything about our fans. But the real challenge is, I was just doing the numbers, is we've got about 50 events to get in about 25 days in May. So that's going to be the real challenge, and that doesn't include rainouts, which I think we're going to have maybe tomorrow and Friday. So I'm running out of possible days to hold and have events. So we'll see how that goes. But that's going to be the challenge. But it is what it is, and we'll try to get as many games in for our student athletes as we can.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, transportation operation report.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, everyone. How are you
I
doing?
didn't see Glenn. Okay, there you are.
Yep, I'm right here. Just a couple things. Just wanted to report out on a couple projects that we did over the April vacation. Up at the high school, we were working on the roof over the guidance. With the weather, I was kind of hoping they would have finished it today, but I don't think they got it buttoned up, but I think they got a few things left to do. So that'll probably be the first of next week before that gets finalized. Also, with the water leak that we had earlier in the year, we got an insulation company in there, and that project happened over April vacation. So we added insulation to the building up to the gym area, cafeteria area. I was talking at the facility finance committee meeting, and we certainly have more areas in the building that I would strongly recommend that we do. So I'll sit down with Mr. Carlton and Mr. Eldridge, and depending on the funding, see how much more we can figure out to get covered up. But those are pretty much the big projects we got done. The custodial staff are working hard on the outside cleanup. We should be getting that pretty much finished up, working around the weather. So At this point, that's what's going on in facilities.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, Riley, I see you're on tonight. What's the student report got for us?
Yes, just making sure. I had some Wi-Fi problems earlier, so can you guys hear me?
I can.
Okay, perfect. So first I'll start with athletics / COVID. As I'm sure a bunch of you guys know, the lacrosse team currently we're all close contacts, so I'm in my house until this Saturday. But the good news is I was hearing from the NPA earlier that masks may not be mandatory at practices anymore for certain sports. So hopefully that could be something that'd be nice for lacrosse, and we're looking forward to finishing the rest of the season.
We're losing you. You're locking it up, Riley. We got your picture. There we go.
Okay, I'm going to take my picture off and see if that fixes it.
Okay, we hear you.
Perfect. So senior graduation wise, that's currently what I'm planning with Mr. Aliberti as well as Mr. Daniels. That should be similar to what happened last year, just a little bit more streamlined and a little bit more open when compared to what we had last year, just based off of guidelines and the fact that my class is smaller, which means that it'll be a little bit easier to manage. Currently, we're just trying to figure out more of the fine-tuning details, like what song are we walking down to, who's going to be doing graduation speeches, how many cars are going to be allowed, and that sort of deal, but it's all going rather smoothly so far. I know that our graduation date is set for the 7th of this June, and seniors are looking forward to that. Everything else goes well. Again, looking forward to as many restrictions, of course. So that was basically all I had to say. So I'll just end it there.
All right. Good information. Any questions, O'Reilly? No, well, thank you for being on the student representative during the school year, Riley, and best of luck to you in your future endeavors. I imagine you're going to be really busy and probably will not be attending our May meetings, but if you are, we'll be glad to hear what's going on. So
thank you guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Any other reports?
I have none this evening.
Okay. So we move into old business. Presentation from CHA Architects regarding school construction.
All right, so we have with us Alan and Kathy from CHA. I have given Kathy some the co-host rights to make their presentations. One of the things to know that we had some presentations at Finance and Facilities, and Finance and Facilities narrowed it down to CHA to bring to you all. So take it away, Kathy and Alan.
Well, good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
I can.
Yeah, yep. Super. Yeah, really, thank you for the invitation. Really nice to meet everyone. And I must say, this has been one of the most pleasant school board meetings I think I've attended in a while. So it's really nice to meet everyone. So my name is Alan Cunningham. I am principal in charge and with CHA Architecture. And I've been with CHA Architecture since 1984. And some of you may have heard of us before CHA Architecture. We were Portland Design Team, then PDT Architects, and then in 2017 we were acquired by CHA Architecture. And I'm here with Kathy, and maybe Kathy, you want to say a few things. But I have been doing school since 1984. I also taught school. I also served on building committees, and in my early years, I was also in the building trades. So I've been on all sides of the coin in terms of getting things built and getting things designed.
Kathy, so my name is Kathy, and I have been with CHA Architecture for 10 years. I've been working with Al for the last 10 years. Al and I have done a ton of projects together of all different sizes and complexities. We've done some of the more complex projects together that our firm has done in the last 10 years. And we've also done some of the trickiest, sort of seemingly small projects, but actually quite tricky. So we've worked together for a long time and have a really great working relationship. I've been working on schools for the last 7 years. and am now the K-12 studio leader for the firm. So I've worked on a bunch of schools with Al and a few other schools in addition to that. So I think what we
Yeah.
Go ahead, Al.
Kathy. I was going to say, you might want to flip it into the presentation mode so you're not seeing the,
Yeah.
or maybe that's enough.
That's easier said than done. I can do that.
Okay. No,
I'll do that. Sorry,
Okay.
it's easier said than done just because I have so many screens. Because I work at home with Revit and all these other softwares, I have 3 screens. So if I do presentation mode, it gets tricky.
Yeah. So we're a multi-discipline AE firm. We're located in Portland, Maine. We have 26 staff here, but we also have the support of a large firm, primarily engineers and support staff. And we have a dedicated education studio that we started almost as soon as we got our first school. But since that time, we've done 25 elementary middle school projects. We've done over 4 million square feet of K-12 projects, pretty much split evenly between renovations and new buildings. 75 pre-K-12 projects in Maine alone. And that includes, as Kathy mentioned, all types, additions and renovations, phase construction, you name it, we've seen it all. And we do everything from soup to nuts, from site selection all the way to furnishings and equipment installation. Might want to jump to the next one. You can see there's some slides here of us working in our studio, but we're very process oriented. Every school that we do is different. I think that's what I really enjoy about designing for education. It's not a cookie cutter process. And I think that's what's really attractive, at least to me as a designer. But our approach is all about collaboration with the community, having workshops with stakeholders, and really understanding what is going to make you successful, what is going to make your community successful and the school successful for your students.
So when we met with the interview team, we presented a few examples of our work, and we talked a little bit about what drives us as designers for education. So we talked a little bit about the themes we're seeing, the sort of trends we're seeing in school design, and the notion that newer and fewer is really prevalent in what we're doing. We're seeing a lot of consolidations, we're seeing a lot of downsizing, and school districts looking to be more efficient with their existing building stock. We just built a new school in Caribou, Maine, where they consolidated 4 buildings. They actually closed 4 buildings when they built their new pre-K-8 school in Caribou. And then at the Bruce Whittier Middle School in Poland, that one was an interesting project because they consolidated their middle school into their high school some time ago, but their middle school was growing and they needed to do an addition to their middle school, high school. They also started rethinking how they would provide identity to the 2 different groups of students. And whereas they sort of initially had thought of them as a single entity with singular services that would serve both, they soon learned when the middle school student population grew that they needed to have admin staff that were dedicated to their middle school students and admin staff dedicated to their high school students. They needed to have separate entries. They needed to have, they still shared major spaces like gymnasiums and cafeterias, but they needed to make sure that they provided for those students separately. So we worked with them to redesign all of their administrative staff spaces and provide them with a separate entry as well as the addition for the middle school. We also talked a little bit about how we address community concerns about consolidation. So we had a project in Old Town where they had 4 small elementary schools and they knew they wanted to consolidate into one building, but they were very concerned about losing their identity from each of the schools. So they had small 120 student elementary schools, and they didn't want to lose that small community that they had at their individual schools. So what we designed for them was these pods, that each pod was about 120 students. It had 8 classrooms, and then it had all of the necessary support spaces. It had teacher breakout rooms, it had speech and language, it had group meetings, it had a little kitchenette for the staff. It also had bathrooms and storage. And then each of these pods was centered around a common space, a common presentation space, Kiva. And the idea being with little breakout spaces as well. So the idea being that they maintained in that pod, they maintained that 120 student small grouping. And then when we went to expand it, we actually took that pod and mirrored it and then stacked it. The design of the school was very compact and very efficient, but it also kind of maintained that idea that they had of these small groupings. Each one of those, so a student would kind of go to that pod and they would follow through that pod all the way through. So first, second, third, fourth, fifth grade. And then those pods were centered around the shared art, music, library spaces. And then the public spaces were a separate wing of the building so that they could actually close off the classroom wings for evening events and public use of the gymnasium and kitchen spaces. And that area actually had its own generator, so it could function as an emergency shelter as well. Similarly, for a project we did in Wyndham, they wanted to do a singular primary school for about 900 students. So you can imagine 900 pre-K to 3 students. That's a lot of little kids. So we had to look at designing a building that dealt with scale and created addressed the fact that it was a huge building for small people. So we did a similar approach where we had these houses centered on a courtyard, and each of the houses did the pre-K through 3 classroom progression. So again, you were kind of stayed within the house in the building. And then there was a spine that connected all of the houses together with all of the communal spaces on the other side. So we talked a little bit about these in the interview because we wanted to sort of talk about how we address ideas of scale when you have bigger buildings, but smaller kids or people coming from a smaller building into a larger consolidated building. At Caribou, it's a pre-K-8 building for 750 students. So it's obviously a large building. And we addressed the fact that the pre-K kids were going to be in this big corridor by making sure that they had some aspect of it that was clearly designed just for them. So these little windows that were low, that meant that, as a small person in a very big space, it's nice to know that there's something, it feels like you have some ownership over that space if there's something designed specifically for you in that space. We talked a little bit about concepts that sort of define 21st century classrooms and some of the things we're seeing in 21st century classrooms, specifically flexibility, the fact that kids are no longer relegated to rows of desks. We're seeing classrooms move around a lot. Smaller kids are on the floor. They're in beanbag chairs. I watch my 7-year-old bounce from 6 different spaces in our house to in the course of an hour doing her, math app on iPad. So that's definitely something that we're seeing a lot of. We're seeing flexible furniture. We're seeing spaces that can be changed up and used in different ways. And we're seeing more hands-on learning spaces as well. Again, talking a little bit about resiliency and furniture that moves. These were the design concepts we had for an elementary school we did in Brunswick. And then you see in this image on the bottom right, that's actually a photograph of the actual space. So you see the concept design that we went through with the staff and teachers about how we would have mobile furnishings and what the storage would look like in the building, in the classrooms, and then how it was actually executed. And what you see is a space that is very toned down. It's very neutral because we know that when teachers get into a space, they want to personalize it and make it exciting for their students and have their activities and their color and personality in the room. So we designed spaces at Brunswick that were very toned down and neutral so that the staff could really personalize those classrooms. We're seeing a diversity of spaces. We're seeing, you know, a real focus on allowing kids to have a sort of a change of place, a change of scenery in the building. So the teachers can take kids, you know, outside of the classroom to do some learning. You know, during the pandemic, we're seeing all sorts of spaces being used for learning, including the playground, right? But we're also seeing when we design education spaces, we're sort of recapturing some of the corridor spaces to use for learning. We're recapturing the way that the libraries are being used is a little bit different. This is an image of that elementary school in Brunswick where we turned the corridor into a tiered learning space so that maybe the teachers could bring a couple of classrooms together in the corridor for a small mad science presentation or something like that. Just get the kids out of the classroom, change up the learning space a little bit. We're seeing, like I mentioned, lots of maker spaces, tinker labs.
Design studio thinking. In the upper right-hand corner, there's that was the Innovation Center up at the Caribou Community School as the furnishings were going in. But really, you know, workstation, CNC machine, routers, robotics. In the lower right-hand corner, they have a big robotics program. It's basically a big open space with work, you know, enough flat area for tables and a flat screen, marker boards. So maker spaces are something that are really sort of coming to the forefront. I said, super trend.
Yeah, at all grade levels. So this is pre-K 8, and they're using their maker spaces at all the grade levels. This is an example here at the Brunswick School. We did some concepts about wayfinding. So we knew that the kids there pre-K 2, not all of them have reading skills yet. So we did a lot of graphic wayfinding the building so that the kids kind of had an identity in the wing that they had their classrooms in. So there was a lot more, you know, it was about using color and graphic representation for wayfinding instead of, you know, actually text signs with room names and things like that. So you can see this is one of the wings. This is the oak wing. They did this really cool concept where they had one wing was the oak wing, one wing was the pine wing, and then the public spaces were considered the meadow's edge. And that's where you saw that curved tiered seating was part of the meadow's edge section of the building. But here you can see this is how the oak wing was interpreted with color and graphics on the floor. And there's, you know, we try to make sure again that each classroom had some way to identify itself with a marker board and then a practical bench for the kids to take their boots off when they come in from recess. Another thing that we look at is security and making sure that we have addressed lots of the current concerns about site safety. So it's not just about, you know, making sure that there's a secure building. It's also about making sure that the bus traffic and the parent pickup and drop off traffic and the walkers and the bikers, they all have safe passage on the site, and there's separation between all the different traffic on the site. So that's something that we really look at when we're looking at site design, but also at building entrances, you know, making sure that there's a primary entrance to the building with oversight and security at the main entry. So those were all things that we talked about that had to do with some of the projects that we've looked at, some of the things that we're seeing as trends in education design. We talked a little bit, we got asked a question about, you know, that basically these are all nice and exciting things, but how would you approach our project? And we talked a little bit about how, you know, we understand that this is not a state-funded project. We understand that this is a project that will be that will be guided by the budget that is approvable and voting, the voters will approve at referendum. And so the Poland project that I showed in that early slide, that one was a project where we designed something in concept design. We designed an addition for them, and then we did some cost estimating, and the owner came back to us and said, that's not something that we can get the taxpayers to approve. So we said, great, what's the number that you think you can get your taxpayers to approve? And we worked with them to get to a design that met their goals and achieved all the things that they wanted to achieve, but also was something that we knew the voters could approve and get behind in terms of their tax base. So that's something that we're very accustomed with. We understand the importance of that. We understand the dynamics of multi-town RSUs, where the campaign to make sure that all of the towns can approve the scope of work is critical, and that's something that we are quite good at, consensus building with multiple towns and community outreach. So I think that kind of summed up. I think I hit on all the things that we hit on in the interview. How'd I do, Andy?
I think you were great. Definitely.
Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. You hit the things that we talked about in the interview, and I think there's nothing there. I will share that, as we come through this process, whoever, when we partner with an organization, part of what I see for us that's really important is community buy-in. The working with the communities to make sure we get what we need, but at the same time, something we can afford. And that's really important.
Yeah, and we understand that. Our community outreach we know how critical that is, and that's something that we really work hard on to make sure that you get a successful project. Any questions that you have for us that you'd like to ask us?
If I may, I just a comment is, since we're adding on to an existing building, I had always figured that the add-on was going to look very similar to what's already there. So it's not like so many classrooms are really new and shining and all different, so that there's a feeling between staff members and students of one's got better facilities than the other. So it's almost like, duplicating what's there, just building it onto the side of the building and attaching it up, more than a complete rework.
Yeah, I was going to say, to some extent, that's absolutely true as our approach. But a lot of times, some of our clients have identified sort of, like if we were doing LED lighting or a new finish palette or something like that, new painting, that you might be able to spread some of that into the existing building to get those efficiencies and breathe a little new life into it. But it really depends on what your budget is and what your intent is. But
yeah, and I'm sure you would work with our facilities director to find out the money we've already spent putting, updating the utilities and everything to gain efficiencies already in the existing structure.
Well, I think in
absolutely.
Yep. I was just going to say, in downsizing and consolidation, I mean, there's a lot of savings to be had there in terms of running smaller buildings and even the amount of transportation back and forth. But it's an opportunity. A lot of times when we do these additions, now we have access to so much more technologies in terms of energy efficiency. LED lighting is just one, but we can really do some good things to really create some value. So.
And sometimes a new coat of paint and some new light fixtures are a very cost-effective way to bring parity to new classrooms and existing classrooms.
Yeah.
And if you're upgrading from fluorescent lights to LED lights, you can see a return on that investment very quickly. So, but that's something that we will work with the team to address and identify what feels right and what fits within the budget.
All right. Any other board members have any questions? Comments?
No, I'd just like everybody to know that we've already expended a lot of those efficiencies through our 2 past projects that we've done. So it would be basically an addition onto a building that we've invested already in efficiencies.
Right.
Yeah, one of the things that we've done, and I think Alan and Kathy are aware of this, is we've done two phases of performance contracts in our buildings.
Yeah.
There still are some things that need to be done. They talk about LED lighting. That's something we haven't touched in some of our buildings yet. So, I think all around there are some good ways we can go, but also we've done a lot of pre-work to get ready for this, which is a good thing for sure.
Yeah.
Alan and I were amazed at how far along you guys are in this process, that you are so organized and so prepared, and we were very impressed, both of us, especially with the very thoughtful approach that you have to which building gets the investments and which building gets the addition. There's been a ton of thought put into that, and we were very impressed with that.
Well, thank you. Some of that goes back to the individual towns years ago.
Yeah,
They did.
We've been
did
through
planning
this
back then.
before.
Not your first rodeo, right?
No, and you kind of learn things as you go along.
And the reality is you're also adding on to a relatively new building,
right,
which helps immensely.
Yeah.
So it will help with the sense of equity throughout the building as well, which is good.
Yeah, agreed.
And it's been well cared for too, as you can see when you walk through the building.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so nice
Process-wise?
presentation. So Andy, what?
Yep. So
I imagine there's further action coming up at some other date.
Yeah, well, so basically at this point, the board, we've seen a presentation from CHA that was the choice of the Finance and Facilities Committee. We do need action from the board to direct me to start the process to negotiate a contract, if that's what you all want to do.
I don't think we can do that tonight because the agenda doesn't allow that.
Right, absolutely.
Right.
So I think that will be an agenda item at the next meeting.
Right, so that gives us all a couple of weeks to think about it, come up with any other questions. Don't just hold them for the meeting. Please send them to Andy, and he can make sure they get to Glenn and Robbie and the Facilities Committee. So, because they may have already asked these questions and already have the answers, and there's no sense reinventing the wheel if we can prevent it. So I thank you, Kathy and Alan. A good presentation. You had me a little scared showing me all these buildings. The first one really scared me because I thought it was a drawing of our building, and I was trying to figure out the footprint. I said, that extension's on the wrong side of the building, and wait a minute, where's the main entrance? So,
well, we're not there yet. Not there yet. Pretty great,
Right.
though. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You.
All right. Thank you. We'll move on then. 6.2 CPT team update.
Yeah, so just briefly, I wanted to update you all, and certainly, there are others in this meeting who are members of the CPT team, and Bob is the board member liaison for the team. So just briefly, we did have a meeting 3 weeks ago, talked about a few things, but one of the things that we talked heavily about was the need to be back in person 5 days a week in the fall. And so, out of that meeting, we had a lot of conversation that administrators were going to go back, look at their buildings, and start the process of looking at what coming back in 5 days a week in the fall would look like. I think we all agree that our communities need that, our kids need that, and that's where we need to be. One of the things that really helps us is reorganization. The reorganization is going to really help us out. I can't say it enough with regards to coming back in. Marco and I have talked about the high school, what that is going to potentially look like in the middle school. So that being said, I wanted you all to know that the CPT team will be meeting next Wednesday. We have a lot to discuss. It's going to be there's a pretty heavy meeting. There's some new mask guidance, as you are all aware. We'll be looking at that. Also, I can tell you that I received an embargoed communication from the department yesterday with regards to potential framework for reopening in the fall. That will be out tomorrow. Kathy, am I correct in that?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, that'll be coming out tomorrow. There are some changes to that that I think are good. And so we'll be reviewing that and bringing that, reporting on that at our next meeting. There's also, like I said, we're looking heavily at 5 days in the fall. I've received a lot of questions from the community with the need to be back in, and I don't disagree. And I think we all share the same goal that that's what we need to do. So we are working tirelessly to look at plans for that, and we'll get a report at our next meeting. I don't know if you want to add anything, Bob.
No, I think these meetings are helpful. It gives a group of stakeholders an opportunity to look at each of these things, discuss them. Some are requests, some that come from staff to go and make changes. Some are agreed to come to the board for changes, and some are decided that we want to continue the way we are. And it's been pretty consistently staying where we were because the guidance hadn't changed. I mean, the requirements that were levied both by the state and federal CDC, and we have to maintain that. I mean, as much as we may or may not like it, it is not only guidance, it's regulations and requirements and maybe even statute or law in some cases. And we just have to, comply with it and do the best that we can. But it certainly is, hopefully our ability to get back full classrooms 5 days a week in the fall and return to a much more normal or a method that we were much more used to 2 years ago than we have been this last year. Whether we'll always be 100% back anytime soon is a different scenario. We probably never will. As my son mentioned today, the one thing that the COVID epidemic has caused us is that there's no more snow days, because unless the parent wants to declare a snow day, which they have every right, just like they could if they didn't want to send them on transportation because they thought it was too iffy. So we have technology. People have learned how to use it. Many learned how to use it much quicker than they had ever planned on. But we have that ability to deliver high quality education remotely. Not the most advantageous way to do it, but I think it's a good lesson for a lot of our students who are going to have to do remote working and remote college. Whether they were, 3 years ago, students were taking a lot of college classes remotely. So, it's not all that new at the higher universities.
Well, and I think we've done a really good job this year. If you look around us at the number of times districts around us have gone out for, a week here, 2 weeks there. We had 1 week in November. We learned from that. And I got to tell you, we have not had to go out yet fully remote since then. Now, I'm going to knock on wood a little bit because obviously the minute I say that, I could probably have jinxed us, but we've done a fabulous job, gotten really creative, and I can't thank our administrators and our staff enough for figuring out ways to make sure we stay in at least hybrid instruction. And we have not been out since the week before Thanksgiving, and that to me is a win. It really is. So, I know that people are frustrated with our current model. I get that. I understand it. I live it in my own home. At this point, we've got 5 weeks left of school. We've done a fabulous job. There's flipping the switch now is darn near impossible. But I think we're sending the message right now that in the fall, our plan is to be in 5 days a week, and we're working on that with the CPT team. So.
All right, so at the next meeting, there will be a report out on the discussions and anything that took place and any recommendations from the CPT team. It's a collaborative planning team. So, all right. If there's no other questions on that subject. Okay, then we'll move on to 7.1. Entertain a motion to approve first year to second year probationary teacher contracts. The list was attached.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote.
Bob?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Robbie?
Yes.
Joan?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
And Dory?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right.
So this is the motion we
7.2.
amended.
Yeah, 7.2. I believe, I'll read what I think it is, and then if that's the case, you can let us go. But it's
Okay.
to approve second year to third year probationary teacher contracts for list attached.
Yes.
Yep.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? I'll call for the vote.
Bob?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Robbie?
Yes.
Joan?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
And Dory?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. 7.3, entertain a motion to approve the school physician in accordance with 20 MRSA 5402-A, Dr. Carol Mansfield.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none, call for the vote.
Bob?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Robbie?
Yes.
Joan?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
And Dory?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. 7.4, to approve authorization to apply for and accept grant monies providing acceptance will not result in the expenditure of RSU funds or expectations of continued staff additions.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Dory?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes.
Joan?
Yes.
Robbie?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
And Bob?
Yes.
Motion carries.
7.5, to approve third year probationary to continuing teacher contracts, list provided.
Yes.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Okay.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, I call for the vote.
Bob?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Robbie?
Yes.
Joan?
Yes.
Vicky?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
And Dory?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you all.
All right. Committee reports, Finance Facilities Committee.
Yeah, the Finance and Facilities Committee met tonight at 5:45 to discuss the facility. We'll start with finance. 9 months or 75% of the year was completed as of March 31st, 2021. Year-to-date revenues, we have received $14,712,317.90, which is 75.21% of the anticipated revenues. And on the expenditure side, year-to-date, we have expended $13,885,563.39, which is 70.98% of the budget. We also talked about revenue anticipation note, which we actually haven't used for the last 2 years, but it's a nice safety net to have depending on where we are. Make sure we have summer salaries in that line and any unforeseen costs coming up. And it costs, Scott says it costs us about $1,000 a year to have that security. So the Facilities and Finance Committee agreed that it was a good step to continue that process. We discussed the update to redistricting, which you heard from Andy in his report. Update on the 2021 budget, which Andy and Kathy had given a presentation on the 5th of May, Andy?
Yep.
On the 5th of May. And also underneath miscellaneous, we talked about on the facility side, which you heard it from Glenn, finishing up the roof project. So, and the insulation piece. So that was it. If there's any questions.
Any questions? All right, thank you. Personnel Policy Committee.
All was quiet at both ends, Personnel and Policy Committee. We did not meet.
All right. CAI Technology Committee.
Any questions?
CAI Technology Committee.
We did not meet, and MEA. So there you have it.
All right. Board member comments. No board member comments? All right. Well, my comment will be continue to stay safe out there. And I am, as of 9:30 this morning, 2 weeks after my second shot. So, all right.
Oh, you're
There
safe
are
to
no
walk
executives. There are no
You can be
executive
out and about.
no executive sessions on the board. Without objection, I will declare this meeting adjourned.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Sharon, do you have a
Good
minute?
night. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Joan.
Good
Good night, everyone.
You weren't going to ask Sharon if she wanted to say anything.
What's that? No, I was asking if she had a minute for me.
Oh, okay.
I do.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Good night, everyone.